Hello, Internet! Welcome to Real Life. I realize that now would be a very good time for me to record a Finally Friday on this motorcycle. I've been riding for 3 hours today. Whoo! I'm pretty sore, man. The wind kind of went away, kind of. You can kind of see over there on the reeds. Strong wind from the south. And I was riding into it, away from it, alongside it, east and west. And then I was like, aha! This bike is not invincible. I've only ridden for like, well, how long now? 300 something miles on this bike in like 3 days. Not a stupid amount of riding, but a lot. And I've learned a lot about the bike. I've gotten way more comfortable with it. It almost feels like my own already. Like I'm just, so used to it. I like to think it's because the bike is so easy to get along with. But basically, because I don't know when or if I'll ride it anymore after today, I thought, well, I better record and speak, my opinions about the bike. I don't know if you're looking at one. It's very unlikely. If you're curious, also not likely. But I have opinions, aside from the fact that the bike looks amazing. But while I ride around a bit more, I may as well talk about all the things. So off the top of my head, neutral is very hard to get into on this motorcycle. Ooh, not my motorcycle, but very neato. Every motorcycle besides mine is neat. Every KTM I've ever owned or ridden is very hard to get into neutral. But it's different than this bike. On KTMs, if you're in first, you're trying to lift and get into neutral, you'll just lift lightly and you'll get into second. Like, well, where is neutral? Same thing going from second to first. If you try to find neutral, you can't. It just won't hit neutral. You have to be in motion and you have to just so lightly. It's very hard to find. Whereas this one, neutral feels like its own gear. It's very hard physically. It's stiff. You're in first, you're lifting up, you're trying to get into neutral, and you're like, I can't lift too hard because I'll go to second, but my foot is caught. I have to lift even harder. Now I realize some of that's probably my bias for being used to my KTM, but I'm quite certain, compared to the normal motorcycle, this is a very hard neutral to find, which is annoying, but it's a different kind of annoying than my bike's neutral. So neutral is notable. I've certainly been on much more compliant neutral motorcycles. Whoa, buddy. Yeah, let's just do this whole video sitting at stoplights. I was told that the seat is comfortable. That depends on a lot of things. Depends on what kind of rider you're doing, how long you're riding, what kind of a butt you have, and all that considered, this is far less uncomfortable than I would have thought. I put it that way. It's far less uncomfortable. It's not like sitting on a cloud. Heck no. My butt is sore, but not sore like I would have been if I had ridden my Super Duke on the stock seat for 3 hours. That would have been worse. So this is strangely comfortable. If you looked at the seat, you wouldn't think it's any kind of comfortable. But if this were my motorcycle, I would not change it. So that's good. I haven't looked it up, but it sure really darn feels like this motorcycle has a longer wheelbase than mine, whatever that means. It just feels very long, which is really cool when you're leaning. It's so compliant and easy, which is strange. The whole motorcycle feels really easy to ride for the most part. But it leans really well. I'm also quite certain, as far as leaning and wheelbase, that it has a shorter radius for the steering lock. I'm positive about that. So that's kind of weird, but also not surprising, because if it is longer, then you would want it to lock so far away. And it doesn't need to do that because this is a straight race track bike, so it's just supposed to do this. It can be long. It doesn't have to do whatever. I'm comparing this to my Duke because they're kind of similar. The Duke, I think, has a shorter wheelbase. This road's kind of bumpy, but also it has a much longer turn lock. So that thing is more of a street fighter. You can really, kind of maneuver it, whereas this one's, I guess, designed more for this. Speaking of bumps, this motorcycle has better suspension. It does a better job with the bumps, and that is comparing sport mode to sport mode. I haven't changed any of the fine settings. I'm just doing mode to mode to make it simple for myself. This bike has better suspension than mine. Pretty sure. Not much better, but better. I would say that when I hit a bump, instead of going, ugh, I go, You feel the bumps, but it's not, how to say it, debilitating. I've been on bumps with my Super Duke that just ruin your day. I've had a couple real bad ones on this one, but none that ruined my day, if that makes sense. And I think it's a fair comparison, especially because I ride the same roads: highways, back roads, country roads, city roads, suburb roads. I've done 300 miles riding on my routes, and so I can kind of do as close as an apples to apples as I'm going to get between bike to bike, mode to mode, person to person, street to street. I know I said this already. but I'm really comfortable with the bike. I'm so comfortable with it. I really like it. But something surprising, it only happened today a bit. I'm surprised that I'm not getting as much heat off the bike as I thought. I haven't ridden a lot of Ducatis, but they've always been hot. I've heard that they're hot. This one hasn't bothered me except till today. I think this part of my leg was down too far and on the side of this engine casing, which isn't the engine, it's a piece of plastic. And I was thinking, hey, my leg's getting hot, and I realized, oh, weird. I don't know what caused that, but it got hot for a second, and I was like, huh, and then it went away, and it hasn't bothered me since. I still have not gotten used to the clutch control. That's my own fault. My Duke engages right here. This one's out like about halfway, which is normal, but I haven't quite been able to figure it out. And along with that, this bike does not like going slow. That is unsurprising. It does about as good as my Super Duke. You can kind of, without using any clutch whatsoever, you can just get by going 10 miles an hour. Anything less than that, you start to glug, or you need to use the clutch to keep it smooth. I got stuck in standstill traffic today and yesterday, so I've had the chance to experience that. It really wants to go fast. I've also had the chance to today, allegedly, go very fast. And that's when it's like, oh, that's what the bike wants to do. I think I was able to experience when it started to tap out. Tap out, I mean where the power band starts to just kind of drop off. Like it's linear. It's very linear for the most part. Starting from, well, about 10 miles an hour once you get some momentum where you start going, up to, allegedly, 160 miles an hour. And then you can feel that it can go more, but it's like it's going to take a while to get there. But up until then, buddy. This isn't a contest, but I would pick the Super Duke over this because it's not that this bike isn't usable at low speeds, but the Duke is geared down more, so it's even more fun at low speeds. This thing, a lot of that fun and ability that it has is reserved for high-end speeds that you will practically on the street never get to use, which is kind of a shame. So I think for light-to-light riding, which is what I'm doing, the Duke wins out on that. But this bike has a lot to offer if you're going to use it in a way other than light-to-light. So speaking of speed, I'm 6'3". I'm a big old fully grown little boy. This bike is comfortable for me. I don't know what my inseam is or the seat height is, but the moral of the story is I'm not tiny, and this bike is comfortable for me. So is the Super Duke. I appreciate that. Sitting naturally for me, I'm basically up against the tank. I don't know if the seat's designed that way. I feel like it is based on where my feet rest and everything. But that really feels like only half the seat. You can slide back about a whole butt length like this. So this is where I normally sit, and then that's fast mode. And when you want to tuck, man, on my Duke, I can move back the tiniest bit. I can get a tuck like this. On this bike, you can sit back even further. You can tuck all the way down until my camera literally hits my phone. I can't get down anymore. But, oh man, that tuck, when you're basically flat on top of the bike, really helps when you're allegedly going very fast. How ironic and stupid. I'm sorry. This whole video about like super fast, powerful bike is just me sitting at lights. And it's made more ironic by the fact that I was riding really fast, and this would have been much more enjoyable to watch, but you wouldn't be able to hear jack squat. And speaking of which, my microphone setup is very poor and bad, and I realize my mic just cuts out and stops. Hopefully this video doesn't go to complete garbage. There's basically nothing I can do short of buying new parts. Not that it matters, because it really doesn't, since I am in my head comparing it to the Super Duke. The Super Duke I have, I can make it modular. I can convert it a bit to go onto like the highway or travel. I can put a windscreen on. I can put luggage. And I mean, I say that as in, they're both naked street bikes. They both look like that, but I can convert my bike, rather quickly into a touring bike. I can load it up with luggage. This bike, I don't think you could put any luggage on here whatsoever, only the backpack on your back, which is fine. Doesn't really matter. But if I were rating bikes between 10 categories, 10 points per category, and 100 points to spend, this is going to have the points spent in a way that I would not want on my bike. I would have spent them in other places like capacity and torque and things like that. So earlier today, I picked up something. I had to unzip my jacket, put it inside my jacket because I don't have a backpack, because I can't wear one right now because I have a tattoo, fresh one right here, so I can't actually wear a backpack. But the moral of the story is, yeah, even with the little tail space, which I can't turn to, which is about the size of my fist, it's super tiny. You're not going to carry anything on this bike, which is okay, because this bike isn't a mule, it's a goddamn stallion, and it's made to look pretty. This bike has gotten more compliments than mine in this shorter amount of time. So I think 2 or 3 times today, someone's like, that's a nice bike today. And they're like, thank you, it's not mine. I can't take credit for it, but my bike gets compliments, but I think this one's gotten more compliments in a shorter amount of time. Higher compliment per minute ratio. It deserves it though. This is one of the nicest looking bikes ever. Okay, so I feel like everything I've said about the bike is negative or why it's worse than a Super Duke, and that's not the point. They're different bikes in a way. Oh, there's the heat. Yep, on my left. That's like, what? That's hot. This bike is so smooth. Well, not completely smooth. I guess I can talk about that in a second, but it's so nice when you're, at speed. You're going 30 or something. The faster you go, the smoother it is to a degree. So if you're like at, compared to my bike, if you're at 100 miles an hour, allegedly, it's so darn smooth. If you're not going into the wind or alongside the wind, I did that today and that was kind of rough, but it's so, deceptive how smooth it is, because you don't realize how fast you're going. You go, oh, whoa, that fast? Sorry to slow down. Now, I mentioned lugging in first. As long as you're not hitting bumps or going too slow, there we go, it's smooth. Brakes as well. Brakes are like, that's all I want. And I've mentioned before, I think last time I wrote it in a video, that my brakes are not perfectly smooth. Not this bike's fault. The moral story is, compared to my bike especially, it's very smooth. Not comparing it to my bike, this bike is, it's hard to say. I want to say predictable, but again, it depends on so many things. Who are you? What have you ridden? What are you used to? Because for me, I've ridden a lot, but not as many as some others, and way more than some others. There's certain things that I like, that I'm used to. I would say that this bike is predictable and smooth, and it's not intimidating. That wouldn't be true for somebody else. For somebody else, this bike is boring, I guess. The moral of the story is, despite the fact that this bike is so god darn expensive and fancy, the intimidation level doesn't match. Not that it has to, but if I was ignorant to motorcycles and their costs and stuff, and I got on here, I go, oh yeah. But if you told me 30,000, that's where the fear comes from. It's more so the name and the price than how it works. It works so well, basically, I think, that it's like, oh great, I could daily this no problem. I'm not really worried about it at all. Like right now, I really want to just lay on, get some throttle, but I'm doing light to light, and this bike does light to light just fine. But all that good stuff, all that fun, it's not at the lights. It's way past the lights, out in the straights. That's where the bike is like, I gotta tell you, it'd be a sad, sad thing if the owner of this bike never even got onto a straight. You don't have to take it to a track, although you really should. God damn it, you gotta take this thing to a track. It's what it's made for, really. But if you didn't take this bike into a nice long straight and hit an alleged triple digits, you're not really using the bike. Very generally and quickly, I tell anyone, if you're not gonna, go above 100 miles an hour, allegedly, you really don't need a leader bike, because smaller bikes can do all the things that these ones can do up to that speed, and then all that money you're spending on the bigger engine is just being wasted. So moral of the story is, there's a lot of money to waste on this bike if you don't get to take advantage of it at what it's really good at. That being said, for the times you're not going super fast and you're stuck like me, light to light, stop to stop, car to car, it is certainly not unbearable. It is not even bad. But again, that's me. I'm used to riding a Super Duke as a daily, and that bike isn't really made to do that. Well, actually kind of is. It's a Street Fighter. It's a Street Fighter. It's a Street Fighter version. It's like this, so you can just fart around town too. Okay, how about some other things that stuck out to me? The engine noise, wasn't a fan at first, not really. But when you get to alleged triple digits, that's when you go, oh, that's what it's supposed to sound like. That sounds great. I like that. So around town, it's not bad. You can hear right now, I'm not using any clutch. I'm just above 10. It's starting to lug right. It's chugging the tiniest bit. So it wants me to use a bit of clutch, either stay on, roll off, coast, but it doesn't really like going slow. Can you believe that? Can you believe this 200 plus horsepower motorcycle doesn't like going slow? Ooh, that is getting hot. Ooh, don't take my leg off of that. Oh, that was getting really hot. Whoa. Yeah, this is about when I would want to go home, because the sun's just right there, and I'll be looking right at it for the rest of the night, and it just sucks. What the tit ass else is going on with this motorcycle? I knew there was something else. So the turn signal, I don't like it. I don't like this mechanism. That's just me. And now I realize one big problem is I'm using thick gloves. But compared to mine, it has a much shorter throw. So if I want to turn left, to me, that's barely moving it. And that's barely moving it. I can also barely feel myself pushing it in. My button on my Duke, there's a much bigger press and throw. And the problem with that for me is, with any glove I'm sure, but especially with big ones, you can't necessarily feel if you've engaged the turn signal. You may think you did, but then it may be that you didn't. Or more likely than not, what actually happens is you're reaching for something else, whatever, and you accidentally hit the turn signal and you didn't realize it because you don't even notice that you're doing it. And so you're like, well, I'm sorry, my turn signal was on for a while because I didn't know. So that's, again, like some of the things I've complained about, it's very tiny. Fuel mileage. This thing gets to about 80 miles on the trip meter before the gas light comes on. Now I fill it up full, not overflowing full, but it's pretty darn full. Then the gas light comes on. If the gas light's accurate and I have 20 miles left, that's only 100 miles a tank, and I think it's a 4.5 gallon tank. I would think that I should get more range than that, especially since it says the fuel mileage average is 30. Well, that's actually about right. It's a little short. I'm surprised. I thought it would last a bit longer. I've been doing a good mix of highway, city, street, whatever, and I filled it up like 3 times now, and it's always about 80, 75, 80, 85, then the gas light comes on. So the heated grips, wonderful. I know it doesn't come stock with heated grips. You have to add those on, but like my Duke, same deal. You have to add them on. Once you have heated grips, you can never be without them. In the past couple days, it was like a necessity. Freaking wonderful. Today, I don't need them, but it's always nice to have. I'm gonna get a thumbnail. I'm like, this is ridiculous. The whole video is just me standing in traffic. So I'm just gonna be like, just the motorcycle sitting in traffic. It's so dumb. What was the other thing? It had something to do with. Yes, that's what it was. No, cruise control. I know it's a track bike. Why would you have cruise control? It doesn't need it. But I argue it's a street fighter. I also argue that this bike costs too much to not have cruise control. The technology exists, not that it needs to, but compared to my Super Duke, which does have cruise control, but oh my gosh, once you have cruise control, you can't go without it. This bike doesn't have it. There have been several occasions already I would have used it, couldn't, whatever, you know. If you're going to buy this bike, I hope you don't. Do whatever you want, but I would not buy this bike as my daily. For the kind of riding I do, which is just light to light, occasionally I'll travel, you know. If I also want to be able to hit the highway. The Super Duke is king. It's like, I don't want to say half the price, but significantly less than this. And basically the only places that my Duke, in my opinion, lags compared to this is top speed, smoothness, predictability. Mine's not as predictable. It's very violent, which I like. But anyway, you just have to go fast to really like this thing. It's fun in the meantime. But the problem is, not that this bike needs to do that, but there are bikes that does at low speed better than what this bike does, making this not as good of a choice. Just bugs me at $30,000, roughly speaking. At least $10,000 is never being used. For $20,000, you can get another bike that does everything this bike does up to 100 miles an hour. You know what I mean? So the $10,000 is the name. It's pretty as hell, and then it has that elite performance for like legit race days. This bike is like a Lamborghini, basically, when you get it out. When you get on the throttle, midway in the rev range or just higher, you go on a legit triple digit. It feels like a Ferrari Lamborghini motorcycle. It's like, oh, okay, this is exotic. This is insane performance. As far as, I mean, it's only a V4 and all that, but like it feels like a V8 or maybe a V10. When you really get on it, you're like, oh wow, there's the money. I don't think Dan, the owner of this motorcycle, wanted to hear the reasons I don't like this motorcycle. That's not why he gave it to me. He gave it to me, let me have something to ride. I love this motorcycle. I don't know if I said that. I really love it. I don't love it as much as my Super Duke. I don't think. That's a tough one, actually. I'm going to go off my tangent. If they were both the same price and they both the same, you know, color, whatever, which would I choose? If I don't say Ducati, that's a big problem because the Ducati is a much better motorcycle. This, hands down, this is a much better machine. Well, yeah, I would say the Super Duke. I would choose it, but that's just me. It's because I like the violence. I like the the torque and the cruise control for me is important. The modularity is important. That's not a fault of the motorcycle. So really that just indicates that this motorcycle doesn't fit me as well as another motorcycle would. That being said, holy tits. I've said before, this is one of the best looking bikes ever. I love this motorcycle. When I ride it, I feel like $1 million. I feel like a fully grown little boy. Like, when I'm on my Duke, it's fun knowing that I'm faster than 95 to 99% of the vehicles on the road with me. I am faster, certainly acceleration-wise. But this bike, it goes up even more. There is a 99 or more percent, no, 99.5%, beyond top 1% fastest vehicles on the road at any given time. It's really fun to know at any moment you can just go faster than anybody else. That's such a cool feeling, and you know it with this bike. It's really cool. I almost wish a very fast, like a Lamborghini, came out so we could. It is time to find out which is more better. I'm pretty sure it's this, man. It's shy of, I don't know, what would I fear if I was trying to be the fastest? An H2, I guess. If I saw H2, like, uh-oh. Other than that, they're like, I'll take you on. This bike can do that. Another criticism of the motorcycle. I don't want to be complaining the whole time, but hey, man, these are my impressions after riding it for a while. I have spine problems with my back. It's not good, doctor. And for some reason, on my Super Duke, miraculously, does not agitate my back. Hi, Poop, how are things? But on this bike, it really hurts my tailbone. That's a line from Iroh from Avatar. But anyway, one of my problem spots in my back gets a little agitated on this motorcycle, which is too bad. My butt is really not bad. It's a little sore, but it's like, again, surprisingly comfortable. But I realize as I'm riding, and definitely when I get home and get off the bike, I'm like, oh, my back hurts. So it's too bad. Quick recap of something I've said. This bike is objectively better than my Super Duke, but the Super Duke is better for me. I hope you're not watching this specifically as someone who's a prospective buyer going, should I get that motorcycle? If you're like me, I'll watch motorcycle videos of motorcycles I'm interested in, whether I want to buy them or this is the thing I'm currently interested in, and I want to hear what everyone has to say about them to either learn new things I never would have thought about, or for them to confirm my biases. Like, oh yeah, like I watch 10 700 videos all the time. Oh yeah, you like that about that bike? Oh, I like that too. Oh yeah. So, I mean, I'm not sure. In a way, I hope you're not watching this video for that reason, because I don't think I can be of much help sitting here riding light to light, freaking 45 miles an hour, 200 horsepower motorcycle stupidly. But at the same time, I hope that me talking about this motorcycle has encouraged you in some ways, good or bad. That is to say, you learn some things that were problems and you go, oh, actually, I didn't consider that. Or if you're like, hey, man, that's really cool about that bike. I'm glad to hear that. Whatever it is, I hope that my little insights here were at the very least entertaining. There probably are other things about the bike that I feel like I have to mention. Those are some things that came into my head and I remembered them and I thought to say them, but who knows how much longer I'll have this. I will say, once again, I've had a freaking splendiferous few days riding this thing. Thank you guys for watching. I appreciate you all, and I hope you're all doing well and doing good, and we'll see each other later. Bye. That was a bump. That was a problem bump.